Hi guys, James, Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head down to Australia once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a couple of times before. Now, the last beer that I reviewed from these guys appeared on the channel maybe about a year ago now, something like that. It has been a little while, but this brewery are one that I rate very, very highly. They do a lot of different styles, but as far as I can gather, they seem to be best known for their different kinds of IPAs. Now, the beer that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I don't think I've tried from this brewery before. It's one that I've heard they can do very, very well though, and it is a style that I very much enjoy. So, needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head down to Australia like I said. We are going to go to the city of Brisbane in the state of Queensland, and to be specific, we are going to the district of Newstead, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Range Brewing. So this particular beer is called Left-Handed Scissors. It comes in at 8.4% ABV, and this one is a West Coast double IPA. So yeah, this one should be really nice. I've heard very good things about this. If memory serves me correctly, this is another beer that I picked up at the wonderful Gur Beer in the One Mall in Tsim Sha Tsui in Kowloon here in Hong Kong. They always get a good mix of things from Australia, America, whatever. So do make sure you go and check their place out if you find yourself here in Hong Kong. But yeah, nice to return to Range Brewing after what I think has been about a year. If you do want to learn more about Australian beer, of course, you can check out my friend Sam Smalley over at Short and Stout Beer Reviews. I'll try to remember to put the link to his channel in the video description for you below as well. But always enjoy my Aussie beers, and always nice to return to breweries that I haven't seen in a wee while. So let's crack on with this one then and see how we go. So as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Range Brewing before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Aussie playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, of course, but do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries too, because there are some very interesting things on the channel, even if I do say so myself. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Range Brewing once again then. So, Range Brewing, as I mentioned to you a moment ago, are based in the Newstead district of central Brisbane in the state of Queensland down in Australia, and the company was founded back in 2017 by Matt McIver, Gerard Martin. These two guys apparently were joined very soon after this by Mitch Pickford. So the original two are childhood friends and lived abroad in London, and Matt worked for Brewdog in Soho and was also the brand manager of the London Craft Beer Festival. Gerard is an engineer by trade and worked in mechanical and manufacture engineering, but in London was working for Vitso. And then apparently the idea that these guys had to start their own brewery came after a few too many beers. All good ideas are born that way, I would say. But they wanted to be able to travel and sample the best beers in the world and brew their own versions of these. And Matt and Gerard contacted their friend Mitch, who also happened to be a talented brewer and was working for Catchment Brewing in Brisbane. He was of course interested to get on board with his friends, and soon Matt and Gerard were back home in Queensland building their own brewery. So originally they planned to start the brewery in their hometown of Toowoomba, which is about 2 hours to the west of Brisbane, if I remember correctly. A very pretty town actually, I've been there, but they decided that it wasn't the best fit for Toowoomba, and so they opted to go for Brisbane. So the brewery opened in early 2018 in an old warehouse in the Newstead district, and they've also got an on-site tap room there which sells pizzas, so it sounds very much like somewhere I need to go and check out. But over the years they've expanded their brewery infrastructure, and then in 2022 they opened a second tap room in Abbotsford in Melbourne, which also acts as their southern distribution hub. But until 2022 they didn't have a core range of beers, but at this point they introduced the Disco as their first forever beer, as they called it. And as of May 2025, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 790 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. As far as I know, they are best known for their different kinds of IPAs, but you know, they've done a hell of a lot of different styles. You know, 790 beers is an achievement not to be sniffed at when you consider these guys have been going about 7 years. So yeah, that's over 100 beers each year that they've been in operation, which is pretty damn impressive. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Range Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all of the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, I can take a breath now. It's getting a bit hot in my room actually. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see what it's going to have in store for us. So to tell you a little bit about the beer, this one comes in at 8.4% ABV. As we said earlier on, it's a West Coast Double, Imperial, whatever you want to call it, IPA, and this one is hopped with Superdelic, Citra, Mosaic and Simcoe. Citra and Mosaic and Simcoe we know very well, all three of them from America. Citra 14% alpha acid, it's got a big kind of peachy and mango sort of component to it. In a West Coast IPA, it's going to show you some of its lemon limey characters, I would say, and also a little bit of its kind of lychee type notes. Mosaic 14% alpha acid, again lovely big tangerine orangey notes. Simcoe 12% alpha acid, it's mostly passion fruity. But Superdelic is a New Zealand hop, relatively new, I think it was released like 2017, 2018, 10% alpha acid, and it gives you a lot of candied red fruit flavours from what I remember. So yeah, still getting used to Superdelic a little bit actually. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the technicalities of the beer. The artwork on this one is quite nice. It's kind of, you can see, well, you can see the Range symbol on the top of the can there as well, which is very nice. I think the can's sweating a wee bit because it's, yeah, it's a bit, well, it's a shiny can and it's getting warm in my room as well. But yeah, you can see plain silver top on the can there. 440 milliliters this one. It looks very, very nice. So I think you've had a good look at the artwork. We can get this guy out and into the glass and see what it's all about. Oh, I've told you lies, it's 8%, it's not 8.4. They must have brewed this one originally and it was 8.4 because the Untappd page said it was 8.4. But yeah, so 8% West Coast Double IPA this one. Sorry, telling you guys lies in this video. But yeah, let's get it out and into the glass. There we go. So yeah, for me, the West Coast IPAs can kind of lean one of two ways. They can be a little bit more sort of bready and biscuity, such as the Pliny the Elder from Russian River Brewing, or they can be a little bit more caramelly and oily, such as the Sierra Nevada Torpedo. Those are the two kind of benchmarks for me. Oh, and you can see the head on this. That's poured with quite a soapy looking head actually. That's going to fade away very, very quickly. But before it does, I would say that's a kind of creamy, white coloured head there, but just under a finger of kind of soapy, bubbly head there. I wonder why it's quite like that. But yeah, colour wise, you can see this one. It's got a lovely kind of pale golden straw colour to it, this one. So this tells me that it's going to be a little bit more bready and biscuity in terms of the West Coast IPA spectrum. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well, but that can vary from beer to beer and brewery to brewery, of course. But yeah, appearance wise, this one looks pretty nice, and we have seen West Coast IPAs this colour before. You can see the head has just faded away to be a very thin foamy layer. I'm not sure, yeah, this one's got a bit of natural haze to it. It's not crystal clear. I can see that when I wipe the condensation away from the glass. So it does have a wee bit of that naturally hazy character to it. But remember, West Coast IPAs use primarily barley malt in their malt base. It's not unheard of to use like a little bit of oat or a little bit of wheat in these. I believe Ballast Point Sculpin is one that uses a little bit of wheat. So yeah, it's not unheard of to do that, but primarily barley malt in a West Coast IPA's malt base. You can certainly say that. But yeah, one or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass with this one, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there, but all in all, not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one. But yeah, looks the part of a West Coast IPA, this one. Let's have a wee look at the aroma then and see what this is going to have in store for us. I think this is going to be pretty good, and with the Citra Mosaic and Simcoe combination there, I think it's going to be quite old school, to be honest with you. So yeah, aroma wise, this is pretty damn pungent, I will say that for it. So yeah, for me, this one, it kind of gives you everything you would want from the West Coast IPA. You've got that lovely bready and slightly sweet malt base, the big green component, and the big oily fruits. And you know, there is something a bit nostalgic about this beer too, because of that Citra Mosaic and Simcoe combination in there. Citra and Simcoe were some of the really old school hops when I first got into craft beer in the early 2010s. I feel old now. But yeah, Mosaic came along a little bit later from what I remember. But you know, Amarillo was the big orangey hop that was popular then. But yeah, let's just break the aroma of this one down then and describe it for you more in depth. I think this is going to be pretty awesome. So yeah, the backbone of this beer, it's kind of what you'd expect, in all honesty. Yeah, so you've got a lovely little bit of like fresh white bready bread crust, but I do get a wee touch of like brown bready bread crust out of this one as well, which is quite interesting. So yeah, wee bit of white bready bread crust, a little bit of brown bready bread crust in there. On top of that, there's a little bit of slightly woody character to this one. So yeah, a little touch of woodiness in there, a wee bit of cracker. You often get these little subtleties, but then yeah, definitely a little bit of a sweeter brown bread in there. I'm pretty sure they've used Aussie malt in this, because it doesn't smell quite dry enough to be European malt, and it's not quite oily enough to be American malt, I would say. It smells like a little bit more like dense bread. So still trying to adjust my nose so that I can pick up the differences with the Aussie malts and things like that. But yeah, aroma wise, the bready character in this one's nice. Like I say, a bit of wholemeal brown bread in there, but mostly like a kind of brighter white bready character. And yeah, you've got a good little bit of kind of brown sugary character coming out of this one for sure as well. So there's a little bit of like toasty brown sugar in there, about quite a lot of McVitie's digestive biscuit, and a sort of sweet caramelly type character to this one as well. So yeah, the way that all goes together, I think, is really, really nice. Yeah, the oily caramelly notes in this are nice. The McVitie's digestive biscuit I'm getting is great as well. I'm really curious to try this one for sure. But yeah, the malty side of this one I think is really quite nicely done. I'm interested. I would be interested to see the brew sheet of this one and know exactly what malts they've used in it. But yeah, malty side of this one is really pretty damn nice. At the back of the nose, then you start to get the yeasty characters out of this one, and the yeasty side of this beer for me, it's kind of like a sweeter brown bread, to be honest with you, like a more kind of sweet and slightly crackery wholemeal brown bread. That's the main component that I'm getting out of this one. Yeah. So for me, yeah, a little bit of a sweeter brown bread, a little bit of a crackery note, and you can get more of the kind of biscuity character mixing in with that yeasty side of the beer too. So yeah, all in all, the way this one goes together on the malty and yeasty side of things, I think is really nice, and it gets more and more, this beer certainly gets more and more pungent the more that I smell of it too. But this is one that I bought and I was really excited to try this. It's not often you come across a West Coast double IPA these days, at least in Hong Kong, so yeah. Right, and I haven't tried one from this brewery before either, which was another plus point. But yeah, let's go on to the hoppy side of this aroma then. So remember, when it comes to hopping IPAs, you've got 3 different kinds of hoppings you can do. Early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil, that gives you mainly bitterness and a deeper, danker aroma. You've got late addition hopping, which takes place within the latter half hour of the wort boil. A little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma, I would say. Then dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete. That's all about flavour and aroma. West Coast IPAs use all three, which is why they're deeper and danker, because the early addition hopping really dominates. New England hazy IPAs, whatever you want to call them, they rely on late addition and dry hopping, which is why they're softer and more kind of juicy. There are West Coast IPAs out there these days though that use the late addition and dry hopping mainly, modern takes on the West Coast IPA. But yeah, for me the West Coast IPA has to have that bigger bitterness. The ones that I got into had the big 80, 90 IBU count to them. They were bitter as fuck, I remember, but I loved them, absolutely loved them. So going by the aroma of this one, you get that nice deep dank green component that you would expect for sure. There's a little bit of earthiness in there. There's a wee touch of pine resin, but not too much, I would say. I think this one's maybe not going to be a full like 80, 90 IBUs, but I think it'll be about maybe 60 or 70 or something like that. We'll see though when we taste it. But lovely, nice kind of oily, lovely, nice kind of oil. It's Citra and I don't know which. It's Citra, Mosaic, and Simcoe Cryo. I'm not sure how many of those are Cryo or if it's maybe just the Simcoe. So maybe it's the Simcoe Cryo that's giving you that slightly more oily floral note to this one. But yeah, you've got a lovely kind of oily grassiness to this beer as well, which I do really quite like. So yeah, aroma wise, this beer is really pretty damn good. So yeah, green component in this one, lovely bit of zesty grassiness, which will probably be from the Citra, and yeah, the oily green component and the oily floral notes will be from all the rest of the hops. But yeah, fruitiness then. So for me, I do get a little bit of that slightly grapefruity note that Citra can give you in the West Coast IPAs. But yeah, there's a little bit of peach, oily mango, passion fruit definitely, wee bit of drier apricot for sure. And I can certainly get that the passion fruit's going to come from the Simcoe, but you can certainly get quite a lot of orangey, tangerine note out of this one, and that's your Mosaic. Definitely that is your Mosaic. So yeah, lovely oily tangerine Mosaic out of this one. And yeah, you've got a little bit, I can get a little bit of that kind of candied strawberry, like candied red fruity character from, yeah, I can definitely get a bit of that from the I can definitely get a bit of that from the fruity side of this beer. So yeah, the way that everything kind of pieces together in this one, I think is very, very nice. So it gets a big thumbs up from me. Aroma wise, everything you would want from a West Coast IPA. So as I always say, just take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But yeah, I think it's about time that we taste this one and see what it's all about. So yeah, let's get the last of it into the glass and we'll have a taste. So yeah, this one is the Left-Handed Scissors, an 8% West Coast double IPA from Range Brewing in Newstead, Brisbane, down in Queensland in Australia. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Oh yeah. I'm going to say to you straight away, that's dangerously drinkable for an 8% West Coast double. That is dangerously easy to drink. And if you take just a smaller sip of it, the flavour really comes out very, very nicely. I will say my first impression of it is I'm curious to see whether the bitterness builds a bit the more that I drink of it. But it strikes me as being a little bit more it strikes me as being a little bit more of a modern take on the West Coast IPA, but it's a very nice beer. It is very, very nice. It's a kind of more soft and kind of juicy take on the West Coast IPA actually. So yeah, I think this one's maybe about 50-ish IBUs or something like that. Yeah, I'm not feeling that bitterness building up, but still, I very often complained when West Coast IPAs didn't have a lot of bitterness, but for this one it seems to work a wee bit actually. But I was kind of interested, I was right with the aroma. I didn't think this was going to be overly bitter based on what I was picking up. But yeah, it gives you everything you'd want, other than, if you're an old head like me, that bit more bitterness. It's got the lovely juicy fruit, the kind of more oily juicy fruitiness, the big kind of bready malt base, and just that little bit of lingering green component. It's a great beer from Range Brewing, this one. You will enjoy this if you like a West Coast IPA. Pardon me. But yeah, let's break the flavour of this one down then and describe it more in depth as we always do. Let's start in the middle third of your palate then. So the backbone of the beer is obviously that kind of fresh, white bready bread crust. So yeah, fresh little bit of white bready bread crust in there. As you move further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get the wee bit of that little touch of woodiness out of it. Then you've got the Jacob's cream crackers sitting on top of it, a wholemeal brown bready layer, a more fluffy kind of white bready sort of layer sitting above that as well. And then yeah, you get that kind of toasty, you get a kind of toasty caramelly sort of layer sitting above that too. And then the next layer up, you've got a kind of you get the circle in the middle of your palate where the booziness of the beer kind of concentrates. So yeah, toasty, slightly toasty caramelly note in there. The McVitie's digestive biscuity character, and then yeah, you've got that sweet kind of caramelly note as well. So yeah, lovely sweet oily caramelly character in the middle of your palate. That is of course the boozy side of the beer. Then it's surrounded by there's maybe a little touch of a kind of butterscotchy or fudgy type flavour in there, but not too much. And then yeah, the McVitie's digestive biscuit, then that sits on top of a more toasty carrot. Yeah, it sits on top of a more kind of toasty and just yeah, it's more of a toasty caramelly note. So yeah, the malt base in this one is quite nice actually. It's a good little bit sweeter than the colour of the beer had me thinking it would be from the beginning, because yeah, this colour is usually a more bready West Coast IPA. So yeah, the way that goes together I think is pretty nice in this one. Yeah, so on the I think we've said everything we need about the middle third of the palate. Let's go to the back third of your palate. As I've often said, sweeter flavours come out further forward on your palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. And generally speaking, between middle and back third of your palate, you've got very similar flavours, just at different intensities. So yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. You've got the kind of brown bread in the base, the kind of barley malt white bread in the middle, and just a wee bit of the toasty biscuit sitting on top. But yeah, the bread crust on the back third of your palate feels that little bit kind of drier, if you like. You've got the more Jacob's cream crackery notes on top of that. Then it's a more light, airy wholemeal brown bready character above that. Then yeah, you've got the fluffier white bready note, the kind of the barley malt white bready note sitting above that, which is very, very nice. And then yeah, you have you've got that little bit more kind of toasty caramelly biscuity character just coming out on top of that, which again I think is very, very nice. So yeah, the yeast sits above everything else though, so let's check out that kind of yeasty character. So yeah, yeasty side of things with this beer then, for me, it comes out a bit more in the aftertaste in a sense, but yeah, for me, at its core, it's like a sweeter wholemeal brown bread. Then as you move further out from that, you've got a more fluffy white bready character in there, and then yeah, more of a kind of you've got more of a kind of bread crusty character around the very, very edge of that. But yeah, definitely back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of condenses down that wee bit. But the yeast takes a little bit of time to come out into the aftertaste, but the sweetness on that middle third of the palate lingers there for quite a bit of time. I'm feeling I'm getting slightly more bitterness out of this beer into the aftertaste, but not overly much. It's not like old school West Coast IPA bitterness that I'm getting out of this one, in a sense. But yeah, let's go on to that hoppy side of the beer then. So yeah, back corners, green component first. Back corners of your palate, you've got that nice little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, you get a wee bit of a woody, kind of herbally sort of thing out of it, which I do quite enjoy. And then, yeah, as you push further forward beyond that, you've got some nice floral aromaticity coming out of this one. So, yeah, the way that goes together is pretty nice in this beer. So, yeah, nice, yeah, wee bit of earthiness, wee bit of kind of herbally character, and yeah, more kind of floral aromaticity coming out of the beer the further forward that you go. Yeah, a little bit spicy on the front corners of your palate, but round the front curve of the tongue, the beer is that little bit lighter and more sort of grassy and slightly zesty, I would say, as well, but quite an oily green component actually. So yeah, fruity side of the beer then for me, front third of your palate, so border region between front third and middle third of your palate. You get that nice little bit of bready build up again, brown bread in the base, the white bread in the middle, then the wee bit of biscuity character on top. The base of that front third of your palate, yeah, you've got the white bready bread crust, the crackery notes, the wholemeal brown bread, the white bready character, a little bit of a toasty, yeah, a little bit of a more toasty, yeah, a little bit of a more sort of toasty brown sugary base. And then, yeah, you get a wee bit of the sweeter kind of caramel creeping forward, but then, yeah, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's have a wee look at that. Yeah, so for me, the fruity side of this beer, yeah, the Superdelic really gives you this very candied, it reminds me of like the Haribo Straws a little bit, you know, those big strawberry things you get from Haribo. That's what it really reminds me of, and it's quite pungent. It kind of gives you a bit of an impact flavour when you take it in, but the other flavours that are in the fruity side here seem very, very familiar. So at the back of that front third of your palate, or the back of that oily bubble, you get a little bit of grapefruit, which will be from the Citra. Further forward, you get a little touch of like oily peach. There's kind of oily mango in there, slightly drier passion fruit underneath, and then as you move further forward, yeah, a little bit of drier apricot, maybe some oily pineapples there. The passion fruit, of course, will be pushed by the Simcoe, but yeah, the front half of that front third of your palate is all about the yeah, it's all about the kind of oily tangerine characters of the mosaic. So yeah, the oily tangerine mosaic notes that come out of this one, I think, are very, very nice. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really quite yeah, the fruity side of this one is nice, and I think, yeah, into the aftertaste, it feels like maybe underneath the orange you've got that little bit of kind of candied, yeah, you've got a wee bit of that sort of candied strawberry sort of thing to it, which I really do like as well. So yeah, I like that about this beer, I can safely say that. Yeah, the fruity side of this one, that candied strawberry flavour kind of lingers there into the aftertaste, as does the sweetness. It's a really interesting West Coast IPA, this one. I've had a few recently, but this one really kind of stands out a wee bit as being a bit more oily and a bit more candied in its flavour, so certainly quite unique. So thumbs up to Range Brewing for giving me something that's that makes my palate and my mind think a little bit, of course, because after 4,000 odd reviews, that you want things that are going to challenge your palate a wee bit, and this one certainly has done that. So I like that about this beer, and it's so drinkable as well. So I think on that note, we should round off with a wee look at the mouthfeel of this beer. So for me, mouthfeel wise, I would say this beer is, I'd actually say that it's right in the middle of the spectrum. It's mid-bodied, the carbonation is very, very smooth, there's a little bit of that oily slightness to it. As I say, it's fairly low IBU. I think this is maybe about 40ish IBUs, 50 at the absolute most. I really don't feel this one being all that bitter. Does it tell you the IBU on it? No, it doesn't. As I say, it doesn't come across so bitter. Normally I would have complained about that, but I think it kind of works for this beer. But I think, yeah, 40 or 50 IBUs at the absolute most with this one. The malt base, as I say, a little bit drier underneath, smooth in the middle, and a lovely kind of sweetness on top. The yeasty character gives you a wee bit more sweetness too. 40ish IBUs, and then a lovely oily, fruity component to this one, but really nicely balanced with a little bit of candied fruit too. But all in all, a really interesting beer, this one, and one that I've certainly enjoyed trying, and you can't ask for much more these days. So yeah, this was the Left-Handed Scissors, an 8% West Coast Double IPA from Range Brewing in Newstead, central Brisbane, Queensland, down in Australia. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Range Brewing as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the fairly near future. I think I've got one more can of theirs to try, actually, so you'll probably see that one appear fairly soon. But until the next time, thank you for watching. Check out my social media, check out Range Brewing social media, check out my friend Sam Smalley over at Short and Stout Beer Reviews if you want to learn more about the Aussie beers. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys very soon. Slange just now. Cheers.